Welcome to Max Premieres. This video is for those who always keep their eyes on what is coming next. Today we bring you 10 films from 2026 that have not arrived yet but are already generating plenty of buzz. Franchise sequels, unexpected reboots, animation set to dominate, and more than one blockbuster that could be the release of the year. But before we get into it, it would mean a lot if you took a moment to leave a like and subscribe. Thank you so much. Number 10. Dune, Part 3. Paul Atreides has conquered Arrakis and united the Fremen under his absolute leadership. But absolute power comes at a price, and that price is being collected with a brutality no one fully anticipated. Based on Frank Herbert's novel Dune Messiah, Denis Villeneuve's third film will have to confront the darkest part of Paul's arc, the prophet who becomes a tyrant, the hero whose victory transforms him into the very thing he promised to destroy. Timothée Chalamet returns alongside Zendaya, Florence Pugh, and Austin Butler in what promises to be the most complex and morally ambiguous conclusion of the entire trilogy. Villeneuve has proven with the first two installments that he can handle epic scale without losing the human weight of the story. The third film will be the definitive test of whether he can sustain that tension all the way to the end. The premise of Dune Messiah is intentionally uncomfortable for the viewer, and that is exactly what makes it fascinating as cinematic material in the right director's hands. The universe of Arrakis still has much to reveal and destroy. Number 9. Moana 2. Moana returns to the ocean. This time, the mission is bigger than ever. An ancient darkness has awakened in the depths of the sea, and the ocean has chosen Moana once again to face it. Ali E. Cravalho returns to voice the character alongside Dwayne Johnson as Maui, and Disney's animation team has expanded the visual world of the first film with maritime environments that look absolutely spectacular in the released footage. The first Moana was one of Disney's best animated musicals of the past decade, and this sequel has every ingredient to follow that path with even more ambition and emotional scale. The songs, the water animation, and the relationship between Moana and Maui were the three pillars that made the original work, and all three appear to be back with greater intensity than before. Disney's most anticipated film for 2026 among family audiences worldwide. The expectations are enormous, and the studio has everything needed to meet them fully. Number 8. Supergirl, Woman of Tomorrow. The DC Studios universe keeps growing, and this time the spotlight belongs to Kara Zor-El, Superman's cousin. Based on Tom King's acclaimed graphic novel, this Supergirl is darker, more violent, and more morally questioned than any previous version of the character has dared to be in any medium. Millie Alcock, known from House of the Dragon, plays Kara in an adventure that takes her to the most dangerous corners of the galaxy, alongside a young alien seeking revenge for her destroyed people. James Gunn produced this film with the care he has shown in every DC project, and the initial trailer generated a strongly positive reaction from fans. If Tom King's material is adapted faithfully, this could be one of the most distinctive and emotionally rich superhero films ever made, centered on a female character. June 26th is the date everyone has circled in their calendars to avoid missing the premiere of this new chapter of the universe. Number 7. Meet the Fockers, New Chapter. Ben Stiller, Robert De Niro, Barbara Streisand, and Dustin Hoffman return after 15 years for a fourth installment of the franchise that generated over $1 billion at the global box office across its first 3 films. This time, the family dynamic enters a new chapter. Greg and Pam's children are now adults and bring their own partners into contact with Jack Burns' legendary circle of trust. The formula that made the 3 previous films work remains intact, the tension between the chaotic and uninhibited Focker family against the controlling and suspicious Burns clan that never lowers its guard. With that cast and that track record of proven success, expectations are enormous among fans of the saga. The question everyone is asking is whether 15 years away added freshness to the franchise or diluted it. The definitive answer will arrive very soon in theaters around the world. Number 6. Insidious 6. They are already here. The horror franchise, created by James Wan and Lee Wannell, turns 15 and arrives at its 6th installment, with the promise of connecting the saga's different timelines into a single, unified, and definitive narrative. Insidious has always been defined by keeping its fear in the territory of the psychological and the supernatural without relying on explicit gore, and that commitment carries through to this new entry according to the little that has been revealed. The dark realm between the living and the dead that is the heart of the franchise's mythology returns with more layers and more dangers than in any previous installment. The full release date and complete cast are being kept very close to the studio's chest, which has only generated even more anticipation among fans of the saga. One of modern cinema's most consistent horror franchises continues forward with all its forces intact, the promise of closing something left open too long, and the support of one of the most loyal audiences the genre has built in decades. Number 5. Pressure. One of the most surprising additions to the 2026 calendar. Pressure is a political and psychological thriller exploring the decisions made at the highest levels of power when the cost of getting it wrong is measured directly in human lives with no possibility of going back. Full cast and plot details are still being handled with considerable discretion by the studio, but early footage points to a film that bets on sustained narrative tension over easy visual spectacle. The genre of adult political thriller has had several defining moments in recent years, and this film arrives at a time when audiences clearly have a real appetite for this kind of serious and well-crafted content. The solid premise needs to be properly executed before any firm judgment can be made, but what has been seen so far results in genuinely promising material that justifies the enormous expectation it has generated among the most demanding followers of the political thriller in contemporary cinema today. Number 4. Street Fighter. The most iconic fighting tournament in video game history comes to cinema once again, this time with the backing of Legendary Pictures, and a production that clearly learned from the mistakes of previous franchise adaptations. Street Fighter has decades of mythology that a single film cannot fully cover, but this new project's approach appears to center on Ryu and Ken as the entry point into the universe, which is exactly the right call to attract both longtime fans and new audiences. The franchise has a complicated cinematic history, including the 1994 film with Jean-Claude Van Damme, more famous for being bad than for being good. This new version has considerable ground to recover, but audience appetite for video game adaptations is at its highest point ever thanks to Mortal Kombat and The Last of Us. The opportunity is more real than ever, and the studio perfectly understands it cannot waste it again as it did in the past. Number 3. Scary Movie 6. The most successful parody franchise in cinema history returns after 12 years away. Scary Movie 6 picks up the tradition of satirizing contemporary horror with a humor that asks no permission from anyone and has always known exactly what audience it is looking for to satisfy with every gag and reference. The horror genre has had an especially productive decade, with Hereditary, Midsommar, Get Out, Nope, and a long list of films that have redefined what the genre can do, which means Scary Movie 6 has an enormous catalog of fresh material to parody without exhausting itself at all. Anna Faris has not confirmed her return to the project, but the studio has hinted at familiar faces making appearances for fans from the very beginning. The central question is whether 12 years away preserved or diluted the formula's impact on today's audiences who did not grow up with the originals. Fans of the saga put the dates on their calendars from the first official announcement. Number 2. Mortal Kombat 2. The tournament that determines the fate of the Earth returns at a much larger scale than the first installment. The 2021 film was the highest-grossing video game adaptation of that year, earning $83 million globally, despite its simultaneous theatrical and HBO Max release during the pandemic. This sequel has a bigger budget, more warriors, and according to those who have seen the script, a version of Shao Kahn that finally does justice to one of the franchise's most imposing antagonists across all its decades of history. Johnny Cage, the character fans most wanted to see in the first film, finally gets a central role here, and that alone is enough to generate real and sustained enthusiasm. Mortal Kombat 2 is shaping up to be one of the most anticipated action films of the summer of 2026 for all fans of the fighting genre and the video game universe worldwide. The definitive tournament is about to begin. Number 1. Spider-Man: Brand New Day. Tom Holland returns as Peter Parker in what is officially the beginning of a new chapter for the character within the Marvel Cinematic Universe. After the events of No Way Home, Peter Parker starts over. No public identity, no previous allies, on his first day at MIT without anyone remembering or recognizing him. It is the boldest reset the studio has attempted, with such an established character in popular culture. The film takes its title directly from the comic arc that marked the beginning of the modern Spider-Man era, and the promise is that this Peter Parker will be more vulnerable, more isolated, and more interesting than ever before. July 30th is the release date in theaters worldwide. It is probably the most anticipated release of the second half of 2026 and one of the most eagerly awaited Marvel Universe films in several recent years. Peter Parker starts over, and that is exactly what the franchise needed to recover its full strength. And that is all for today. 10 2026 films coming very soon that have everything it takes to be major releases of the year. If you enjoyed this video, do not forget to leave a like, subscribe, and hit the bell so you never miss what we drop next. The best cinema is still on its way.